Welcome everyone to another Bright Reality Media conversation with a devotee of Adida Samraj. Our guest today is someone who I've known for many years. He lives in Lake County, California, and I met him when I was living at the Mountain of Attention Sanctuary about 10 years ago or so. And in 2019, I was on retreat with him at Adida Samraj Ashram on Naitumba in Fiji. It was my first time going on retreat in Naitumba, and it was really wonderful to spend some time with Roger. And I'm looking forward to talking to him today and hearing about an incredible, powerful Leela of a healing that happened in his life in relationship with Adida. So Roger, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I remember 10 years ago, like you said, I think I played golf with you.
Yeah.
And I was in pretty bad shape at that time, mentally and emotionally and everything like that.
Well, you seem really great now. It's been really wonderful to feel how Adida has healed your life. You seem a lot. You seem really happy and full of devotional energy. It's been awesome seeing your energy online as well. Reflecting so much about Adida. For those who don't know, what is a Searchers Beholding retreat?
Well, that was what they called the retreat in those days. It was you go over to the sanctuary and you'd be on retreat and you'd meditate in the cathedral there every morning and afternoon.
Is in Ananda Hall?
Yeah, Ananda Hall. We had a hotel in the area and we'd come over every day and spend the whole day there. Go back to the hotel at night, but we were there all day. And Beloved would invite us in for, darshans and so forth. His bedroom or his living room and bedroom were right next door to the hall we were meditating and we could hear him in there sometimes while we were meditating, talking. It was kind of strange. One time I heard this New York accent, this guy talking in the other room. It didn't occur to me. I was thinking, who is that?
Who has been interrupting my meditation?
Yeah. And then I realized, oh, of course, it's Adida. He's in the room next door.
Yeah.
Anyway, I started to feel this blissful current to come in my meditation over there. And I really liked it. And when I came back from the retreat a couple weeks later, actually they called me a level 1.1 at the time, which
That's
I really
serious stuff.
Yeah, I really wasn't. I think they knocked everybody back down to student beginner after a while. But after the retreat, I was a 1.1 for a little while. But anyway, I had this. I started feeling this blissful current over there, and then when I came back, I was meditating in the chapel in Temple Adida and over there every day, and at the sanctuary here in Lake County, Mountain of Attention, and I could feel that blissful current happening, and I started to realize there's a way that I could help to feel it all the time at will. So I loved it, the way it felt. So I thought it was part of my practice at the time, it seemed like, and so I helped it. Actually now I realize I kind of manipulated the energy up into my head to feel this blissful feeling all the time. And I did it all day long, day after day for 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
I didn't know what I was doing really. I just kind of stumbled across it in the hall there, and I didn't know what it was, but it felt good and it seemed blissful and it seemed like part of my practice to me at the time. So, and then I went on retreat in 2006. I went to Naitumba on retreat, and Beloved was there, and I was kind of involved in this practice that I had been doing for the last several years. And we actually went in the hall with him one day, just three people, just three of us and him. And the RSO, of course, and a few attendants were there, and he was granting darshan to the three of us devotees. And, he looked at me for quite a while. He looked at everybody, but he was looking over the top of my head for quite a while. And I was wondering what he was doing, but I had the feeling he was looking at my future. And he had a very serious look on his face, and he was looking over the top of my head for quite a while. I had no idea what it was about. But well, I figured it was some kind of blessing or something, you know, something very good, but I didn't know. But anyway, when I came back from that retreat, and I was kind of manipulating the energy the whole time while I was there, actually, because I thought I was convinced it was my practice, part of my practice. So I came back.
Sorry, what did that energy feel like?
It felt very blissful. I felt the energy come up into my brain and the ventricles of my brain. There's millions of, you know, nerve cells up there that just pervaded it all, and it felt blissful. So regardless of what happened in life, it didn't matter to me too much, because I could always feel this this blissful current. And also I was really addicted to it, I would say, but I loved it, and I just wanted to feel it all the time.
Definitely.
So, you know, from the morning meditation, I'd start meditating and feeling it, and then I'd just keep doing it all day long until I went to bed at night, and I'd do it day after day every day.
How are you manipulating it? What were you doing?
I kind of actually felt energy in my mouth and throat, and I would kind of suck it up, and I didn't know what I was doing, but it felt blissful to kind of help it to go upward into my brain and feel the bliss.
Well, that seems like most people would say that's pretty nice.
Yeah, I was convinced it was nice. Felt nice to me. Anyway, when I got back from retreat, it was something happened. I didn't know what, but I wasn't able to do it anymore. Something felt like some part of my brain collapsed. I had like a nervous breakdown in the left side of my head, and nerves collapsed. And I was very concerned about it. I thought, wow, what was that? That's pretty serious. Whatever
Is that like,
it is.
you mean like a physical thing?
Yeah, I felt like something just kind of broke down, actually. I kind of felt something. It broke down. And then when I would try to suck the energy up, it was blocked all the time, and it hurt. Actually, it was like a blockage, and I couldn't feel the energy anymore. So I was pretty devastated. I didn't know what to do about it. So I just tried to meditate more and more, but it couldn't penetrate it. It was like a blockage, and it wouldn't be penetrated. So I wrote Beloved about it in 2007. And he said I should, you know, I didn't tell him I was manipulating the energy. I just told him, you know, this happened to me. That felt like I had a nervous breakdown, and it's very difficult for me now to get back to being myself. I couldn't seem to get back to the person that I thought I was anymore, and I was like devastated. Really, I was very upset, and it was very difficult to go to work every day and feel that all day long every day. Anyway, I wrote him, and he said, well, maybe you should have it physically checked out, have an MRI and a CAT scan, and go see Dr. Allen, who deals with people like you. That's his specialty, dealing with these kind of energy phenomena, mental breakdown kind of things where you're depressed and all that. I was very depressed. And so I did that. I had the MRI, the CAT scan. They didn't show anything physically wrong with my brain. But I think they're really looking for aneurysms and tumors. So but anyway, they said there was no aneurysms, no tumors. It looks okay. I had a couple of them done over time. They all came out fine. I saw Dr. Allen down in LA, who was Beloved's doctor a number of times when Beloved was out here in the States. And he was sympathetic, and he prescribed a lot of different herbs and remedies, and some drugs as well, like antidepressants. And I saw him a couple times, but it really didn't work for me. I was still suffering the same problems. He said I had major depression, major clinical depression, which I did have. I was very depressed, so that was one of the main symptoms.
Is that something that you had in your life before this?
Yeah, I had it for a period like 20 years before, for a year or two. And I had hoped that it would never come back, but it came back big time then. That was 2007. So I hadn't had it in 25 years. I thought I was free of it, but it really came back. And rather than go down to LA to see the doctor down there, I started seeing a lot of doctors in the Bay Area, different doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and mainly they would prescribe neurologists, people like that, trying to figure out what was wrong with my head. They would prescribe, antidepressants. I must have tried 10 or 20 different antidepressants, and none of them really cured me. I was looking for a cure, so I wanted to be cured of this thing. It was terrible. And at the same time, my business was getting worse and worse, and I owed a lot of money to the bank, over $1 million.
Oh, wow.
Well, the company owed it to them, but I didn't personally, but I knew they would come after me because I had signed on the contract.
This was during the recession.
Yeah, it was during the recession, economic crash in 2007. And we were making $5 or $6 million a year for a number of years there in the early 2000s, but it was going lower and lower and lower. I didn't know how I'd pay the bank back all this money that I owed them. Plus, I had investors that I owed money to. But I never thought this would happen. I never thought it would happen. The business just kept getting better and better all the time, and I thought I would be able to sell it and pay all the debt off, and I'd be fine, and everything would be wonderful. But that didn't happen. So it's kind of interesting that at the same time this physical collapse in my head occurred, also the business was failing practically identically at the same time. And like I said, I saw doctors for many, many years trying to find some kind of cure for this thing. I didn't have any luck. Medical intuitives, I took acupuncture once a week for a couple of years. I saw different kind of gurus who I thought might be able to help me. And I tried to write Beloved back, but by then he had already had his samadhi, so I never was able to connect with him again after that. So I was kind of on my own, still looking for a cure. And then I found a doctor who prescribed opioids and Xanax for the anxiety and opioids for the pain in my head, which I suffered chronically, moment by moment, day after day after day for years. So that was a big relief. That was the only thing I found that really did work was the opioids and the Xanax. They kind of numb the pain, and I could kind of get through the day, each day at work, a lot easier on the opioids because they numb the pain, and you don't really feel all the pain, either emotional or physical. And I kept taking the opioids and the Xanax for many years after that, and I became quite addicted to them. I was on them probably 6 years, maybe. I was on them when I played golf with you back in 2012 or whatever year it was.
I could tell you are on performance.
You could.
No, I had no idea that was you.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I was very serious and depressed at the time, and so I was gaining a lot of weight, got up to about 240 pounds eventually. I'd been like 160 most of my life, actually. And then I started taking these drugs and I started adding all kinds of weight. And they had unpleasant abdominal pain and bloating and effects like that as well. Constipation, you know, it had a lot of bad effects on my abdominal intestines and that. But they were like my lifeline to get through life. Like I didn't know how I could get through life without them anymore, so I kept taking them. And things were getting so bad that I really was hoping I would die. Actually, I thought maybe if I got reborn, I'd have a better life, and I'd at least have some happiness. I didn't have any happiness anymore. I thought it felt like I'd be better off dead. Plus, I had a $2 million life insurance policy through the company, Keyman Life Insurance Policy, where I thought if I died, you know, the Key Life Insurance Policy would cover all my debt to everybody, and my wife would be better off. And I convinced myself that everybody would be better off if I was dead. So I overdosed. I took a mixture of drugs that overdose, and I did not wake up the next morning. And my wife found me in a
Wow.
I was you know, what do you call it, comatose.
Wow. I had no idea that you were going through that, Roger.
Yeah, I was comatose for for 3 days. I didn't come out of it. I almost did die, actually.
Wow.
And I went down, they took me down in an ambulance down to Redbud and then in Clear Lake, and then they put me on a helicopter and sent me to Santa Rosa Memorial. I wasn't aware of any of this because I was unconscious.
Wow.
But I woke up 3 days later in ICU, where first thing they did when I woke up is stuck something in my tongue, so I vomited out all this medicine that I had overdosed on, and I got out of my system. But they kept me there for 3 or 4 days in the hospital, trying to get me back in better shape and get my symptoms of unconsciousness. I guess I had some serious symptoms, and they trying to revive me. 3 or 4 days there at the regular hospital. But one thing I realized then in the hospital was that the attempt to kill myself did not help anything whatsoever. I came back, I had all the same problems. My head hurt more than ever. My business was doing worse than ever. It didn't really solve any of my problems for me or anybody else. So, and I thought I must have something more to learn about life, because that's no solution. Clear to me, it wasn't a solution of any sort to die or to do that. So after 3 or 4 days in the regular hospital, they handcuffed me and put me in a psych ward for about a week.
Wow. Oh my gosh. They handcuffed you?
Yeah, when I was leaving the hospital, they came in with a stretcher and handcuffed me, and then took me out in another ambulance to the psych hospital called Aurora, the other side of town. And I didn't have any say. I didn't have any say so about it. They're gonna do what they're gonna do with me. And I was handcuffed. In any case, they put me in the psych ward for about a week, and until they felt that I was okay to go home. And the people there were nice. I kind of enjoyed it because there were some nice people there. We'd watch TV a lot and talk to each other. And most of the people there tried to commit suicide too, and some of them several times. But anyway, after I got out of there, I went back home and tried to resume my life, but I still needed the drugs. So I went to the doctor, and to my surprise, he gave me more of the opiates and the Xanax. Kept giving it to me, so I kept taking it, and I was going to get some treatment in Santa Rosa. And I was driving there one day from here in Loch Lomond down to Santa Rosa, and the police pulled me over. They said somebody had complained about my driving. So they pulled me over and gave me some tests, and I had the drugs on the passenger seat, my opioids and everything. I didn't think they were prescription drugs. I didn't think it would be a problem. But they gave me a test. They gave me the alcohol test, which was fine, but then they gave me a blood test, which turned out to show the opioids in my system. So they gave me a DUI.
Mm-hmm.
They handcuffed me and put me in jail for the day. And
That's a hell of a couple of years you were having, Roger.
yeah, I really went through it. Anyway, yeah, I had to take DUI classes for a number of months, and but at some point there, around the end of 2017, I was just becoming very hopeless about everything. And I knew I had to quit the drugs or they were going to kill me for physical reasons, not because of overdose, just because of I had so many abdominal problems and the pain and everything, And so I decided one day, I was in my hot tub, and I got to give them up. But I was totally hopeless at the time. I didn't have any hope for myself without drugs. That was my lifeline. Without drugs, there's no hope for me. It's completely hopeless. I felt like there's no hope for me. No, it's
You were
hopeless.
still having the pain in your head.
Yeah, the pain was still in my head. I was still very depressed and all that.
Were you
I felt it was,
were you getting any support from your friends in the community then?
yeah, I was involved in study group with other devotees, and we would meet regularly, but it was still until I finally gave up, until I realized that I was hopeless. It was hopeless for me, and having read Adida's teaching, I realized that, there isn't any separate me anyway. So I thought, who cares what happens? I don't care what happens anymore. Just let it happen. I don't care what happens. And I gave him up. And actually, after I gave him up, within a short period of time, I just started to feel no concern for myself anymore. Who cares? Just let it happen. And it became very wonderful. It was actually a wonderful feeling to not be concerned about myself. I didn't really care anymore. I didn't really care what happened to the business either. I didn't care any. Who cares? There is no me. So who cares? Let it happen. Anyway, so I went on like that for hours and hour after hour, day after day for several days. I was just, to my amazement, I just continued to feel whatever was arising, but not be concerned about it and not start, worrying about the future or dwelling on the past or anything. I wasn't really depressed anymore either. Everything was actually very wonderful. It was just happening moment by moment. And I was just feeling it moment by moment because I didn't really have any choice. I couldn't go back to being me anymore. That wasn't really an option that I wanted to do. I didn't want to go back to being the person that I was.
Sounds like you were in an incredibly vulnerable position where
Yeah,
you had nothing to kind of console yourself with.
right. Right. It's kind of like the dark night of the soul that they talk about, where, you have nothing, and you just free fall, off the over the waterfall. Just let whatever happens is going to happen. And it felt like actually falling into the heart. What he talks about is a heart. It felt relieved of the whole thing. Just let it, whatever's going to happen, moment to moment. It was very different. I maybe I had felt it a few times in the past, here and there, and moments here and there, possibly, but I never really felt it in this way, so strong and such a period of time. And I didn't feel like I had any option to going back to the way I was, so I just decided to let it just keep happening, and I didn't want to go back. Let it happen, whatever's going to happen. So I took, my head, I think, hurt really bad one day, and I thought I'd take the drugs, and then this thing, it started to fade. So I said, no, I don't want this. I'm not gonna. So I gave up the drugs totally at that point. I never took them again. And it just became, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, actually. It was a lesson, a very hard lesson to learn, but after that, things became much more easeful, and actually the business started to become easeful and pleasurable without drugs. And, you know, my patterns would come up still. I'd have to deal with my patterns. They'd come up, you know, I don't want to be around that person. You know, all this kind of patterns that come up that you've acquired over the last 60 years or whatever. And, but rather than reacting or getting angry or whatever you typically would do, I just let them happen. And just really kept turning to the practice, turning to beloved, rather than getting into the patterns.
Did you find that in this time you had more availability for relationship with Adida, and more time meditating or studying or anything like that?
Yeah, I also I never realized how true his teaching was. It made complete sense to me, everything that he said. And I realized the whole thing that I had was about Adida. Clearly, it was his gift. Everything that he would say about self-contraction and avoiding relationship and turning to the heart and falling into the heart and turning to him, and all that made complete sense. And invoking him and feeling him and breathing him and serving him, like they say in the morning puja, was helpful to stay with him. That helped me to stay with him, you know, in difficult circumstances. It just helped me to do that. So I kept doing it, and things just got better and better, and I've never been happier, actually.
Well, good. That's good to hear. Did so from when you stopped taking the opioids to when we went on a retreat together in 2019, is there anything that happened in your relationship with Adida that continued that healing process for you?
Yeah, the whole practice, like I said, just became so clear to me, of turning to him and feeling rather than reacting and getting into my patterns. Just feeling that I would observe the self-contraction happening, and you know, I'm avoiding relationship with whatever's arising at the moment, and it just, instead of, I just feel whatever was arising, kept feeling, because my observation was that I was avoiding relationship, and it would cause a self-contraction if I went with it. And I'd suffer all the symptoms of the self-contraction. You know, fear, sorrow, anger, doubt, dilemma, anxiety, depression, all these things are symptoms of the self-contraction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people suffer them chronically in many cases. And I used to suffer them chronically. I suffered them chronically for 10, 12 years there during that spell. Even before that, I was suffering from them.
Did you feel any kind of like guilt or shame or anything about not having this revelation or understanding earlier, or was it more of a relief that it was finally clear, or more clear?
Yeah, it was a relief that it was finally clear, or more clear. And it was also the realization that I had not really practiced it before. So it was like a new practice to me, because I never really practiced it before. I didn't realize what the practice was, really. I had been around for years, but I tried to practice, but it was like, it wasn't the same practice.
You weren't having all this like blissful energy phenomena during this period, right? Or were you?
Well, I wasn't manipulating the energy, but I did start to feel like a blissful current coming down from above and freely given by him, and wasn't anything I was doing. It was just given. So I started to feel that more and more. And the more I would turn to him, the more I would feel that. And it's been my practice then ever since then, really.
And the pain in your head has gone away?
The pain in the head?
Yeah.
It comes and goes. Most of the time, I don't even notice it anymore. But sometimes if some pattern comes up and I get, kind of stuck in a pattern, it'll get tightened up sometimes. And just got to keep turning to beloved and forget about it. Who cares?
Well, that's a fascinating, fascinating sensation that you're having, and it seems like a pretty tangible bit of like almost evidence, whether you're practicing or not, whether you're feeling that.
Yeah. I get immediate feedback if I'm not practicing.
Wow. If only all of us could be so lucky.
I know, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, really. At the time, I didn't realize it back then, but it was like I was searching for a cure the whole time from the dreaded Gambu. It was obviously I was searching for a cure and I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was Kundalini gone wrong. Maybe I stumbled onto, somehow a Kundalini process and I did it too much and it finally just, collapsed in my brain.
Well,
but nobody I could find knew anything about Kundalini or how to fix it once it happens. I've heard of Kundalini gone wrong, but I couldn't find anybody who knew how to fix it.
Well, whatever it was, it seems like when you stop having concern for yourself or for your dilemma, your life totally changed.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So it's a blessing, total blessing and a gift in that respect.
Well, Roger, I'm really glad that you had that healing in your life.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what is your practice in relationship with Adida like these days?
Well, right now, because of COVID, the sanctuary's been closed off pretty much for the last year. So I meditate at home. It's fine with me. I just do the same practice. I do my little puja in the morning. I meditate at home, typically every morning. And then I go to work and I have to practice there. It's a matter of practicing regardless of what you're doing. I don't know if you remember that guy Ruben's question to Beloved about, I can feel you in the hall and I can, but when I get down to my computer and I'm working on my computer, I don't know how to feel you. Something like that.
Right.
Well, Beloved said, he was clearly saying that it's a moment-to-moment practice, and regardless of what you're doing, but you're working on the computer. I work on the computer a lot all day too, so I just keep practicing.
Yeah, and do you feel more of a availability to turn to Adida during your work life now than you did before?
Oh yeah, so I don't know if you want to call it a practice, because practice implies it's something the ego is doing, the separate self is doing, but it's not really a practice. It's more like it's always already the case if you just fall into it. And so the practice is just falling into it all the time, rather than the self-contraction and all the suffering that comes as a result of that.
And has your kind of coincident with your greater availability and lack of concern for self, have you felt more recognition of who Adida is?
Yeah, well, it's very clear to me. All his language is very clear to me what he's talking about. He talks about me, he's talking about consciousness itself, the divine reality. He's talking about God, because he was clearly a realizer. So, turn to him, it's turning also to consciousness itself and the divine reality and God. It's all the same to me.